Good morning, everyone. I'm excited to welcome you to today's presentation. We're going to explore the essentials of writing formal letters. The title of our session is Writing Formal Letter, and you'll also see a subtitle if you look closely. Over the next few minutes, we'll cover the key steps and tips for crafting effective formal letters. Let's get started and make this both informative and engaging. Let's take a moment to look at the contents of today's presentation. This slide outlines the key topics we'll be covering. First, we'll start with the basics of what a letter actually is. Then, we'll explore the concept of formal letters and their main characteristics. Moving forward, we'll discuss the step-by-step process of writing a formal letter, which is crucial for clarity and professionalism. We'll also examine the proper format to ensure your letter adheres to accepted standards. Additionally, we'll look at some sample letters to illustrate these points in action. Lastly, we'll touch on the importance of focus and specificity when writing, and we'll wrap up with references for further reading. This overview helps us understand how everything fits together in mastering formal letter writing, which is a valuable skill in many professional and academic contexts. Let's take a closer look at the contents of this section. We start with the letter itself, which is the main topic. Moving on, we'll explore the focus and specificity needed when writing a formal letter. This is crucial because clarity and precision help convey your message effectively. Then, we'll examine some sample formal letters to see these principles in action. After that, we'll discuss the key characteristics that define a formal letter, such as tone and structure. Following that, we'll review the proper format of a formal letter, including the layout and essential components. And finally, we'll look at the steps involved in writing a formal letter, guiding you through the process from start to finish. All of these points tie together to help you understand how to craft professional and effective formal letters. So let's talk about what a letter actually is. A letter is essentially a written message that you send to someone. It could be addressed to an individual person or even to an organization. The main purpose is to communicate something, whether it's information, a request, or just a friendly note. When you think about it, a letter is a personal way to connect, especially in formal or official situations. Throughout this presentation, we'll see how letters serve as a fundamental form of communication, helping us stay connected across distances. Now, let's talk about formal letters. These are the types of letters we send when we don't know the person personally, like when addressing editors, offices, or bosses. They are usually more structured and polite. The main purposes of formal letters are quite clear. First, we might write to find out information. For example, asking a company about their services or products. Second, we use them to apply for a job, presenting ourselves professionally and clearly. And third, we write to make a complaint, expressing our concerns or dissatisfaction in a respectful way. Understanding these purposes helps us know how to approach writing these letters. Whether we're seeking information, applying for something, or addressing a problem, keeping a professional tone is key. This slide ties into our overall theme of effective communication, especially in formal contexts. Now let's take a closer look at the characteristics of this type of letter. First, it's addressed to someone you don't know personally. That means it's a formal communication, often with a professional tone. When we talk about the content, it typically revolves around work, business, or official subjects, things that are important in a professional context. Think of it as writing a kind of formal letter that serves a specific purpose. For example, you might be writing a letter of inquiry to gather information, or a letter of complaint to address a problem. You could also be expressing regret over a situation, resigning from a position, or simply sending a thank you letter to show appreciation. The key takeaway here is that these letters are structured and formal because they're meant to communicate professionally with someone you might not know personally. Recognizing these characteristics helps us understand how to approach writing such letters, ensuring our tone and content align with the purpose. This understanding ties into the overall theme of effective business communication, being clear, respectful, and purposeful in our written interactions. Let's talk about focus and specificity. First, it's really important to be focused in your writing. That means sticking to your main message and not getting sidetracked. Second, always remember to be polite. Don't be rude or aggressive in your tone. Third, when writing letters or messages, keep them concise and purposeful. There's no need to try to impress with overly complicated or lengthy sentences. For example, instead of saying, please, very, very, very thank you, just say thank you. Fourth, avoid confusing or overlong letters that can make your message unclear or hard to understand. By following these points, you'll communicate more effectively and ensure your message is clear and respectful. This focus on clarity and purpose really ties into the overall idea of good communication we've been discussing. Now let's look at the first step in writing a formal letter, the sender's address. This is where you include your house number, sector, and city. It's important because it tells the recipient exactly where you are writing from. Next, we have the receiver's address. Here, you specify details like the editor's name, the name of the newspaper, and the city. This helps ensure your letter reaches the right person and department. Then we have the date, which should be written clearly, for example, 2nd Jan 2019. Including the date is essential because it indicates when the letter was written and helps with record keeping. After that, there's the salutation, which is the greeting at the beginning of your letter. Use sir or madam, depending on the recipient. This sets a respectful and professional tone right from the start. Overall, these elements, address, date, and salutation, are foundational for a formal letter, and getting them right helps communicate your message clearly and politely. This step-by-step process is key to making your letter effective and professional, fitting perfectly into our overall theme of effective communication through formal writing. Now, let's walk through the steps of writing a formal letter. First, you start with the subject, which should clearly mention the problem in about 6 to 8 words. This helps the reader immediately understand the purpose of your letter. Next, the body of the letter is where you develop your message. It should include an introduction that briefly explains the reason for writing, the main content where you detail the issue or request, and a conclusion that summarizes your main points or states your desired outcome. After the body, you move to the complimentary close, such as yours faithfully or yours truly, to end your letter politely and professionally. Then, you sign your name to personalize the letter and add credibility. Finally, at the very end, include your signature and your name underneath it. Remember, these steps are essential for structuring a clear, respectful, and effective formal letter. They connect directly to our overall theme of professional communication and proper writing skills. Let's talk about the format now. When we consider format, we're really focusing on how the content is organized and presented to make it clear and engaging. This includes the structure of your slides, the use of visuals, and how information flows from one point to the next. A good format helps your audience follow along easily and stay engaged with your message. It's important to highlight key points here, such as consistency in style, font choices, and layout, which all contribute to a professional look. Also, think about how visuals and text complement each other, using images or charts to reinforce your message rather than cluttering the slide. Connecting this back to the overall theme, a well-thought-out format supports your communication goals by making complex ideas more accessible. So remember, the format isn't just about aesthetics. It's about enhancing understanding and keeping your audience connected to your story throughout the presentation. Let's take a closer look at this sample letter. It's a personal communication addressed to the editor of Mashriq newspaper, dated January 2, 2019. The writer begins by expressing their loyalty, mentioning that they have been a regular reader for nearly 9 years. This establishes credibility and shows a long-term relationship with the newspaper. The main concern starts with the writer noting a change in the newspaper's style and content. Initially, they were very satisfied with the quality of articles, the choice of writers, and the stories being published. But recently, they feel that the newspaper has shifted its focus. The writer highlights that the supplements now contain more advertisements for expensive brands and irrelevant products, which they find unnecessary. They also observe an increased focus on glamorous parts of the city, rather than the hard-hitting, meaningful stories the newspaper was known for. A key point here is the importance of social issues. The writer reminds us that the newspaper's reputation was built on publishing articles related to social concerns. However, now there are very few such articles. They urge the editors to concentrate more on these pressing social matters rather than commercial or superficial news. Finally, the letter concludes with a polite appeal, emphasizing the writer's love for the newspaper and their desire for it to return to its original, impactful style. This letter exemplifies constructive feedback and highlights the significance of maintaining journalistic integrity and focus on societal issues, which is essential for the overall theme of responsible journalism. Let's take a moment to look at the references that support the information we've covered today. First, there's a helpful resource on WordPress that discusses the definition and types of letters, which provides a solid foundation for understanding different letter formats. Then, there's a YouTube video that offers visual explanations on writing formal letters, great for seeing the process in action. Also, an image link that illustrates various letter styles can be very useful for visual learners. Additionally, SlideShare presentations are included, one focusing on writing formal letters and another detailing the step-by-step process. These resources are valuable for further reading and practice, and they connect directly to the key concepts we've discussed about letter writing. Remember, using credible sources enhances your understanding and helps you improve your writing skills effectively.